All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Legacy of Lies. I'm your host, Gabe, and I'm here with my co-host, Pat.
All right. Good to talk to you all again.
Yeah, it's really nice to be back. It is crazy we've already done 4 of these things. Every time we do one, it seems like it's the first time, and then you get rolling, and it's like riding a bike, man.
Yeah.
You get used to it.
Yeah, and you start, I know because we've talked about it, but you look forward to it. And when this came about, Gabe approached me about doing a podcast, and my first thought was, everybody does a fucking podcast, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Gabe and I have these conversations regardless, whether there's a camera rolling or we're mic'd up or speakers. These are the things that we're passionate about, and we had these conversations anyway. So it's fun, and I look forward to it every week to sit down with you and to connect with other people who are probably interested in the same stuff we are.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Well, and you find people that you didn't know were into a lot of the same stuff, and they're all like closeted too, man. Like everybody's into this weird, mystery shit and cryptids and stuff, and nobody wants to talk about it, because it still has that weird stigma attached to it, I think, for a lot of people that, I don't know, I haven't cared about that in like 15 years. But when you're in a professional setting, like, you bring it up to the wrong person, people look at you sideways. So,
well, and that's definitely part of it too, is, you go off into a career or whatever you're doing. And yeah, I mean, it carries a stigma with it. And again, I'm the same as you, though. I don't give a shit. I'll talk about this stuff with anybody, quite honestly. But there are a lot of people who are, like, oh, you guys are talking about giants and Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Who doesn't,
Right. Why would you not talk about stuff that's cool and interesting?
It's interesting. Yeah. I mean, what are you supposed to do? Like fantasize about going to work and, this is cool stuff.
Right. You're not going to sit and think about the Dow Jones all day.
Yeah.
And talk about boring stuff. You want to talk about cool stuff that nobody knows if it's real or not, right?
Well, and, you think about the innocence of a child. These are the things that when you were growing up, this was the fantasy world. This is all the movies.
Yep.
And then at some point you realize it's not real, and then you get older and you're like, shit, maybe it is real.
Yeah, you come full circle on the conspiracy podcast.
That's right.
Yeah, I share the same opinion, though. I absolutely love doing this podcast. It's been even more fun than I thought it would be.
Same, for sure.
It's honestly, I tell people, that I work with and in my personal life too, like, if you're interested about something, man, like anything, it doesn't have to be what we're into, but do it. Try it out for a couple $100.
Yeah. You
can get pretty high quality microphones. You can use any old laptop. Like, it really isn't that hard to get started. And I'm of the opinion, like, I don't care at all if we have tons of listeners. That's never mattered to me why we do this. I just really like doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Whether we have 5, subscribers or 1 million, it wouldn't make any difference to me. So
yeah, for me, it's not that we don't spend a lot of time together. As father and son, we spend a lot of time together.
I don't know if we've ever said that on the podcast, actually, for people that don't know us. We are father and son.
Yeah. And so this is my dad. No. But Gabe and I are best friends. We've been very close, forever. So, and we live a mile or 2 away from each other, so we spend a lot of time together. But there's something different, there's something special about sitting down here and doing this stuff with you. So I really appreciate it and look forward to it every week.
Yeah, it's almost like formalizing and recording for posterity, like conversations that are, interesting. Like, think about like my kid right now, potentially more kids in the future, like, could be able to watch this stuff. And it's down on the internet forever now, for better or worse.
Yeah.
But so I guess we kind of teased it a little bit last week. We can jump in here. We want to talk today about giants, and we're going to cover, first of all, the Kandahar Giant story, which I'm sure most people in our orbit are familiar with. Like, it's a very well-known military lore story. It's also has a lot of biblical connotations, given that it happened in Mesopotamia, in Iraq. And it's or Afghanistan, excuse me, and just with the war in Iraq, with their museum getting looted and all the stuff that happened with like Hillary Clinton's emails and everything that came out, all right around the same time is when all this stuff was getting circulated. So there's a lot of tie-ins to this story. So we're gonna start with that, and then we'll probably roll that into just like a more general, broad conversation about giants, the biblical connections with the Nephilim, and just kind of riff off of each other. I think we've gotten a lot of feedback that the best parts of the podcast that people enjoy have been the banter back and forth. So we're going to try to focus more on that too. And just, that's the part that we like anyway. So,
well, yeah, I mean, everybody who would tune into a podcast like this has heard this story. So, you know, we don't need the dramatic music and one of us talking about this giant and, oh my God, you know what I mean? Like there's plenty of people who do that way better than us.
Right. I think our value and what a lot of the podcasts that I listen to, the value is in the personal connection, the back and forth, and people want to feel like they're in the conversation, right?
Yeah, right.
So if that's what people like, that's already what we like. So,
well, that's the fun part of these is, you know, and Gabe's going to probably read through this, you know, a rundown of this Kandahar Giant story just to get everybody on the same, you know, page or wavelength or way of thinking. But I think the funnest part of whether it's lore, true, whatever it is the imagination behind it. Right. And that's like where we're planning on spending a fair amount of our time.
Yeah, and what could be.
Yeah.
You know, that's the part about all mysteries that fascinate me, and conspiracy theories, and like even like we talked about the Bermuda Triangle last week, is like nobody knows if any of this is true, or let alone all of it. But being able, the one thing we do know is that what we've been told for our whole lives is not true. So following that logic, that means that basically anything could be true. Yeah. And that's what we like to dive into. So if you're cool, I'll start out with that.
Let's go.
A rundown and go from there. So the Kandahar Giant, it's a popular urban legend, kind of originated in the military. So this was started in the year 2002. It was near the Kandahar province in Afghanistan. It centers around a U.S. Special Forces team. Depending on the version of the story here, it's usually described as Operational Detachment Alpha or some other operational attachment, Special Forces, basically. And they encountered a humanoid creature while they were searching for a missing patrol. It was a different, more standard patrol that had been out. They went missing. Their normal unit couldn't find them. So this Special Forces attachment was searching, and you know, Kandahar is pretty much remote mountains, the whole region is. So they eventually stumbled across a trail, and it was like scattered military gear, expended casing, so they knew that there had been some kind of firefight, and just general signs of a struggle in these remote mountains. Slowly, they had followed this trail, and they wandered into a large cave entrance, which was littered with even more equipment, human remains, bones, all kinds of evidence. Oh, and they actually found some, supposedly some personal evidence saying that these soldiers were the ones that had been taken. As they approached, a giant humanoid, usually described between 12 to 15 feet tall, the version that I had heard said 13 feet, super tall humanoid, emerged from the cave. The general descriptions that we get, depending on which legend you hear this from again: flaming red hair and beard, 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, double rows of teeth, crude clothing, so think like caveman style clothing, and then the same thing for the moccasins, like crude hide moccasins. A really bad smell, which I gotta bring it up, Bigfoot. Everybody talks about that. Yeah. That's a similar factor in pretty much every cryptid story you hear. For some reason, you always
like
get that
rotting flesh. Yeah.
Right. So people usually describe it as the worst smell that they've ever smelled. So I found that very interesting. And then the last thing is holding a huge spear, like a 10-foot tall spear is the way it was described. As they found the creature, not surprisingly, it immediately attacked them. Impaled and killed one other soldier. In the legend that I heard, the guy's name was Dan. And he lifted him off the ground with the spear and basically impaled him. So, of course, the rest of the Special Forces attachment opened fire. The firefight only lasted like half a minute. was like 30 to 40 seconds, and they went all out. M4s, sidearms, Barrett 50 cals, a Mod Deuce. Like, it was apparently like everything they had. Not surprisingly, put yourself in that situation, you're gonna, mag dump this thing. And eventually the giant was killed. Immediately after that, they called in a Chinook helicopter, which, for those of you that don't know, is like the twin rotor, like the big cargo helicopters that they use to, well, Special Forces use them a lot to move stuff around, but they needed that because the giant was so heavy. They had to have a dual rotor cargo helicopter come and get it. And they lifted him up with a cargo net, and then they took the dead comrade in the body of the helicopter, like in the cab. Let's see, where are we here? Reportedly, the remains were taken from there to Kandahar airfield and then were loaded into a C-19 and shipped elsewhere. So just generally removed from the area. All the surviving team members were sworn to secrecy, signed NDAs, or were forced to sign NDAs, and the entire incident and anything relating to it was deemed classified. Though the missing patrol was never recovered, the story, as it's told, generally makes it seem like it was the giant that was responsible, given the remains and everything that was found there. So there was multiple different sets of remains in the cave, from what I heard, and the bones that they found did not date or did not match up with the missing patrol.
Okay.
But because they had found some of that person's personal effects there, they just assumed that they were lost in the same way. Pretty much everything else here is just a general rundown. So that's the main story, and it really got spread around in like 2005 to 2006. It debuted on popular conspiracy shows, like, I don't know if you've ever listened to Coast AM. That's a really big one. I've listened to that for most of my life. And then there was a interview that was done by a secretive Mr. K. It was his pseudonym. It was a supposed eyewitness soldier who provided key testimony regarding the Chinook and the cargo nets and some of the more specific details of it. And then years later, there was a pilot who came forward who said that he was the one who flew the body out. And there was another guy who had also heard secondhand some of this information that came out around the same time, and they did not give their names. So these people are essentially all anonymous.
So I was going to add, basically I have, we do our own kind of research preparing for these, but and everything I have lines up, except I do have a name for the captain who led the recovery, Captain Ethan Cole.
Ethan Cole, okay.
So I think that, I find that interesting because, you don't wonder if they came up with a name that just provides more legitimacy to it, or who knows. But
right. And there's so many different versions of this story, too.
Yeah, for sure. But they all kind of the same, the same description of this monster, giant, whatever, 12 feet, flaming red hair.
Right.
The double rows of teeth might be the scariest part of all that.
That's creepy.
Can you imagine?
No, I would not want. You think of this, you see a guy at the grocery store or whatever out in public, maybe once every couple years, that's like 7 feet tall.
Yeah.
And your initial reaction, even like, I'm a normal size guy, you're tall, you're like 6'4". We're both like, not small dudes. And like, I see a guy who's 7 feet tall, I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah, you feel huge. Like a baby.
Right. So you see something that's 13 to 15 feet tall, double at least the size of the average man, if not more. Like, I don't even know if in your normal life, if people have ever even experienced that level of primal fear.
Right.
Like, it's got to be comparable to being in a firefight. And then you're also in a firefight with the 13 foot tall giant.
Well, and if we've shot a Barrett 50 cal. So, and a lot of people have. It's nothing, too crazy. It's kind of like a 12 gauge-ish. But can you imagine a beast taking that round and still taking 30 more seconds or a volley of fire?
You got, depending on the story, 7 to 15 crew members, like a medium-sized Special Forces detachment, and their support that are with them, and they are all firing rapidly at this thing, and it still takes 30 seconds to take this thing down. Like, your average truck will take like a couple rounds at most from a 50 cal, like a big block V8, like it's incredible. And the thing about this mystery that is really intriguing to me is that almost all the different versions of the story are very similar. There's virtually no details in any of the probably half dozen different versions I've heard that differ on the key details, which is really rare for if it were to be just an urban legend.
Yeah. The thing that I find, I don't remember how long ago I first heard this story, but it's entertaining, first of all, obviously. But I think of this, and the probably a story that I've heard more times than this are individuals who were in Afghanistan and encountering jinn, or what they think are jinn.
Yeah.
And I mean, that we are talking about like a part of the country that is, there's so much history.
Oh
I
my
mean,
God.
there's biblical history. This is old land. So if there's, evil spirits, bad spells, whatever you want to call it, this is the place for it. I mean, there's been a lot of bloodshed in this ground. So,
It's likely where a large portion of humanity came from.
right.
Mesopotamia, the birthplace of man, basically, is how it's known. So, I mean, we don't have an exact time frame, but for sure 10,000 years, probably longer.
Yeah.
Gobekli Tepe is like, what is that? Almost 10,000. It's insane. It's crazy how old this stuff is.
So here's my, all right. So that's a good story. It's entertaining. And, we have a little video we can audibly play here in a second. But when I, just like Bigfoot or whatever mythical creature, we're talking about, your logical mind is like, how could something like this survive? So this is a pre-flood giant, right?
Right.
So, I mean, we're talking, 2,000 years. How could something like that survive without being seen? Or with the bigger thing is over the last 100 years without video evidence of it.
Right.
So that's where my brain goes. And then I guess something that I think all the time too is, especially a giant, we're talking 12 feet. And then I start thinking, like if Shaquille O'Neal was out there, we couldn't find him any easier,
No.
just because he's big. 12 feet isn't like when the earth is big, man.
Right.
Like there's ground that's never been walked on.
Still, yeah.
Yeah. So it's definitely possible. Like that's something you can get away. So then I go to food. How is it surviving and
Right.
breeding,
Right. Clearly, if you think about it as a standard corporeal animal,
Yeah.
it would have to mate, create more of them. Granted, I'll get into this, but I don't know if that's what it is.
Right.
It might
right.
be something far more magical. We don't know. But if that's your assumption, then yeah, they have to be mating, having kids, sustaining themselves, shelter, food, like the whole 9 yards.
But unless, and this is kind of where my brain goes, unless it is from like biblical times.
Mm-hmm.
And if you like, how old did things live back then?
Yeah. I mean,
Hundreds and hundreds of years. So,
right.
I mean, really, it could be like a fourth generation, 2,000 years. So maybe the breeding isn't such a big important thing. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. And maybe they only have a couple kids throughout their 1,000-year life.
Right.
I mean, we don't know.
Yeah.
So my thought on it, I don't think this is a normal corporeal physical being. I think it can take a physical form, but you get into talking about the Nephilim connection and what these things are. I think that it's almost a spiritual, it's a different consciousness.
Yeah.
Right. It's a different spiritual being. And I think it can take a physical form, but I don't think it ages. I don't think that it reacts the same way as you and I to aging. I think it comes from the same place, but it's a different being.
Yeah. I've definitely considered that too. And I always, the problem is there's so much stuff we don't know, because my
Right.
first question would be if it's, maybe it's the energy these people brought that materialized this being, then why does it stink?
Right.
But it's like, you don't know. I mean, maybe that transfer of energy is what makes that smell.
Yeah.
So who knows?
Well, think about demons, right?
Right.
Demons, they're certainly not, they can be a physical entity. They can, transform and, come to life in front of you. But nobody thinks that a demon ages or has to eat food, or it's the same kind of thing. And maybe that's what it is. Maybe it is some
Right.
kind of demon or some kind of other. It doesn't even have to be religious, but some kind of other more mysterious, like mythical style creature. When we think about fairies or you talk about jinn or whatever, so many different backgrounds on what this thing could be. Nobody thinks about them the same way they think about Bigfoot.
Exactly. Or as I think the problem with skeptics, and when I say skeptics, I mean I'm skeptical of fucking everything.
Yeah, I think you have to be to a certain extent. Yeah.
But like the people who would be skeptical of any of the story, they relate everything to what a human experience is, and I think that's a huge mistake.
Right.
Like the age and the breeding and all that stuff. Well, it's if it's not a human, and obviously if it's 13 feet tall with 55 teeth or whatever the hell,
terrifying.
It's not a human, and yeah, it could. It's not gonna work the way that you or I work, So it's
Right.
I think it's very unpredictable.
Yeah.
And that's why it leaves so many answers or so many questions unanswered,
And it goes back to what you were talking about what we don't know. What we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah.
Common saying, but it holds true here really for all cryptids and mysterious things. But human beings in general have a very narrow scope of opinions, and everybody lives in their own created reality, right? So my bubble of reality is going to be decidedly different than what yours is, even though you and I generally share a lot of the same opinions.
Yeah.
And you think about, Susan down at the library, who's 65, she's getting ready to retire, whatever. Her reality bubble is going to be drastically different from ours, and so on and so forth. And some people can't even, and I think this is why disclosure would be so disastrous for a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think disclosure of aliens or any of this stuff is going to be what people think it is.
Right.
I think it's going to be on a far more deep level of consciousness, that everything is linked with not just human consciousness, but the one consciousness.
Yeah.
And that consciousness itself can come to life in physical form, right? It's like the consciousness combining with parts of the universe. And it's like an expression of that consciousness.
It's cool that you brought that up because so I have a personal experience, but when you talk about people that do DMT,
yes,
and that's just I would love to experience that. Quite honestly, it's like the thought of smoking DMT scares the bejesus out of me.
I think any normal person who's not into that stuff, you hear what happens and you're like, that would be paradigm shifting.
Yeah, I would love that experience, but to me, like it sounds like from what you hear, well, have you heard about, I'm getting way off, but people who smoke DMT and they look at a laser.
Yeah, and they see the little digits.
They can see code, and like they can see through the code through walls.
Oh, it's crazy.
Yeah. But anyways, so back to your comment. So I know I'm kind of all over the place, but back to your comment about, you experience your own reality and the connection. One time when I was at the dentist, I think I told you this, but I typically don't get like the laughing gas, the nitrous oxide.
Yep.
But it was going to be an exceptionally long appointment. I had some work to be done in the back. And so I'm like, hey, give me the juice, turn it up, turn it up to 12. And so I'm sitting there and, I'm huffing away on this stuff. And you feel a little bit, it's not like you get high, but.
No, I've had it before too.
You get a little easy going, whatever.
Right. Just kind of puts you at ease if you know you're going to be in a lot of pain.
Yeah.
Right.
So as I'm sitting there lying backwards and, the doctor's face is right in my face and you're trying to, not make weird ass eye contact with this old man in your grill. But as I'm sitting there, because of the drugs, my mind started to think of things differently. And I was certain that I was fixing my own teeth through him.
Right.
I had I don't know how to. I'm not good at trying to explain that, but I was certain because of that drug, that experience. I'm like, oh, we're the same. He and I are the same. We're connected. I'm actually fixing my teeth, and it was just, and I remember the drugs wore off, and but that thought and that memory stayed there after that, that
It's like it
experience.
unlocks something.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
that's what a lot of people say when they talk about DMT, or even like you know that I meditate a lot. I do tons of meditation. I try to do OBEs. I've never had like a full one, and I know you have had some cool stuff in your dreams out of body. But I've been really exploring that more lately too, and it's like you see it and you're in this kind of surreal dreamlike state if you're deep in meditation, or I mean, I don't know if that's what it's like on DMT, but from the way it's described, that's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
And it unlocks that door for you in your head. And then for me, coming out of a meditative state, it's exactly like you said. You can kind of keep that mindset, knowing that exists, even after you go back, like when I'm done meditating and I go back to my normal life. You don't have the feeling in that moment after that, but you know that it's there, and it's like it makes you kind of understand the core rules of reality
Right.
more. And I don't know, it's fascinating to me the way that something like that can change your whole outlook on life, not just on a minor situation like getting your teeth worked on, right? But it's been described in a lot of the interviews that I've seen and podcasts I've listened to as understanding the core written code of the universe.
Yeah.
But it's not like code, right? It's not ones and zeros. Maybe it's presented that way in our human minds. When we look at the laser, we see that. But I think it's more along the lines of energy and just the way that, we really don't even know what consciousness is.
Right.
We have no idea. We don't know what dreams are, really. And dreams and consciousness, I think, are absolutely linked. But it's like you're getting a sneak peek into that behind the stage of what's really building our reality and what even is our reality.
Yeah. Well, when you talked about having like an out-of-body experience, so yeah, like I've definitely stumbled into my whole life naturally being able to experience weird stuff like that. No skill, nothing I learned, although I would say that I've learned a lot about it now, but like just accidentally had one of those experiences. You did when you were little.
All the time. Yeah. And I've been trying so hard to get back to that.
Yeah. I think a lot of the, I don't know that it's anything, at least that is teachable. I'm not sure. All I can tell you is a roadblock to any of that stuff is fear.
State of mind.
Period.
Too. Yeah. I agree with fear. I think, and you hear about children having these experiences a lot more.
Yeah.
It's because they don't have that version of reality built up in their head.
Right.
They don't know what's possible.
Yeah.
And when you're a logical person like I am, and you have this in the back of your mind, even that this is not possible, this is not reality, I don't think there's a way to get there unless you just work through it and you open yourself up to that. And you can consciously try to do that, but you really have to get it into your subconscious.
Yeah.
That this is possible. And even if you don't think you're afraid, when you first start coming out of your body, because I've been at that point many times, you're afraid.
Yeah.
There's no way to think your way around that.
Well, it's because you have never experienced it. Yeah, right. It's new.
Well, your first thought is, am I dying?
Yeah.
Every single time. And I don't talk about this a lot, really, at all, but that it's so hard to leave your physical body and go anywhere.
Right.
Because of that fear of, am I going to make it back? Or
right.
What happens? I have kids. I have a wife. Like, what if something happens? Is this how people die peacefully in their sleep?
Yeah.
Who knows?
I know. I had a conversation with my wife, your mother, and we were talking about, like some of this stuff. And, it's just, I'm trying to think of how this conversation started. I forget, between her and I. Maybe I'll have to come back to it. It was about the fear. And I think when I was younger, I remember what it was. So it had to do with dreams. And I don't know if it's something in our DNA, but like dreams, I know like my dad, we have vivid dreams. We know we're dreaming. We know that the whole time we're dreaming mostly. Right. So I don't know if it's like part of our DNA makeup. Maybe, I'm not sure. But I remember your mom said she used to have dreams of flying all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't, but I do. When I was younger, I had a dream that I knew how to fly. And when I woke up, I was still certain I knew how to fly. Like,
That's crazy.
I was certain. I'm like, oh, that's fucking easy. I know how to fly.
Right.
But then, the longer you are awake in this reality,
Mm-hmm.
that fear gets a hold of you.
You get out of that state,
Yeah.
right? You get out of that knowing, seeing reality for what it is. And I've had experiences like that too through meditation. And it's almost impossible to hold on to that feeling by
Yeah.
itself once you get out of that state. You still know that it's possible, and you know that door stays open for you, but after about an hour, you're not going to go jumping off your roof and trying to fly,
Right.
because you got kids, you got
Spent-
whatever.
You spent your whole life understanding, Newton's laws and gravity. And,
Right.
Yeah.
But
But
what if
it
that
makes you
block
think.
what if that block is what makes you not be able to do those
Right.
things? Is that what people are working towards when these, the Gandhi type people that are trying to, reach nirvana or, whatever state of mind they're trying to get to break out of the reincarnation cycle?
Yeah.
Is that what they're trying to do? Is just completely unlearn that fear and that projection of what reality can be onto the human spirit?
That always reminds me of the story of Jesus's disciples when they're out in the boat out in the water,
Mm-hmm.
and he stayed behind. And I don't remember which disciple, the name or whatever, but he appears there's this a storm coming in, and he appears out on the water, and they're like, "Holy cow!" And he's like, "It's me, it's Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Calm down, everything's good," basically. And one of his disciples is like, "If it's you, then have me come out on the water." And he walks out on the water. He's got that much faith, he's got that faith. And then he started to question it, and he started to sink.
Yep.
And I think that is a perfect, a perfect metaphor for all of this stuff, is not having that fear. And most of the things on earth are fear-based for a reason, so.
I could not agree more. I often wonder if, because we're both pretty religious, or at least have that belief in Christianity, and I often wonder if that was when Jesus says have faith, in me is what he says, have faith in Jesus, right? Is he the messenger that God sent, that version of himself, of God, that was supposed to teach us that?
Right.
Is that one of the core lessons we were supposed to learn when he says have faith? Obviously he means in God, right? But if you have faith in God, that means anything is possible.
I know. There's so much to it. We could do a whole podcast on, the Bible and the lessons of it, and it would be, there's a lot of stuff there. I mean, because then there's a lot of stuff in there that if you start piecing it all together. And have you ever heard the book, the I can't think of the last part of it. It's from a guy who was kind of like, I don't know, a yogi, or something like that.
Yeah.
I want to say it's the I Am Chronicles or something like that. It's downstairs. You should borrow it. It's a really good book.
Sure.
But basically it's, Jesus says the spirit or the kingdom of heaven is within you.
Right.
And so you start to see, okay, I am, and it's like, okay, maybe I am God. I have God in me, and that'll piss off everybody in the Catholic Church, whatever, saying I am God.
Yeah.
But that's we're all connected. There's a piece of Him living within me, and yeah, I don't know. That's why you shouldn't be afraid.
Yeah.
Type of thing.
And I don't think that that's idol worship. And because I think when you say we are all part of the same story here,
Yeah.
right? That doesn't mean that we are all the same.
Right.
We're all different expressions of that energy that is God, right? So say that you think about God as the divine being, the maker of the energy, right? Basically what that's saying is we're all a part of Him.
Right.
Or we're all a part of the one divine energy. We're all segments of it, but God would be all of it.
Yeah. Right.
Which is
the collective.
Which
Yeah.
is so far beyond what the human brain can even understand.
Right.
But then going back to the giant story, would the giant also then
Be God's child?
a different expression of
Yeah.
that energy, right?
I know. That's crazy. It's something, I mean, we're slightly off topic of giants, but, not really, I guess. They're all, it's kind of all related. So, yeah.
I don't think you can understand cryptids or even attempt to if you don't have that baseline grounding in stuff like that, in the history, in
theology.
Right. And,
yeah.
Well, you always wonder why a lot of these physicists and stuff, a lot of them have minors in theology.
Right.
A lot of these people that study Bigfoot, partly theologians, the people doing the UFO studying, tons of them are into theology.
Well, you just recently, and I don't know if this is a good or a bad thing or whatever, because once something becomes mainstream, then I start questioning it more. You know what I mean? That's just how I am. And,
yeah.
But it was something that a lot of people thought of. It definitely wasn't like an original thought of mine. But when you're talking about UFOs, and I think recently J.D. Vance said he thinks maybe they're demons or, spirits. I can't remember exactly what he said. And I'm glad that he said that. I think it's a good, whether it's right, wrong, whatever, it doesn't matter. Because I think most people, when they think of the devil or Satan, or the adversary, they see cloven hooves and red skin and horns.
Right. And fiery flames of hell.
Yes, and it really could be anything that's going to trick you,
Yeah. Yeah. There's no, I don't think that there's any definitive definition of what hell is.
Yeah.
It is probably, in my opinion, being locked out of that consciousness.
Yeah.
That one, right? The kingdom of heaven say that that's all of us, combining together and, acting as one, like you working on your own teeth, right? Or whatever way you want to put it. I think hell would be being locked out of that and being all on your own.
Yeah, being separated.
When people have fears of liminal spaces, right? Have you ever heard about this?
Mm-hmm.
There's a horror movie coming out this year that's based on that. And it's like this guy, he walks through the wall in the back of a furniture store. He clips through it, clips through it like you would on a video game, right? Glitches out. And he ends up in this space. And all it is, for as far as you can walk, is pale yellow walls and damp carpet. And it looks like a abandoned office building.
That'd be terrible.
It's like hell, right?
Yeah.
But the main fear, and the reason it's a horror movie that people have, is that it's a fear of a liminal space where you're all on your own. You can't get out. There's nobody there with you except for possibly negative entities.
Well, and I'm sure time stops existing, so you can't kill yourself out.
Right? Yeah, you kill yourself, you end up back at the start or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're completely separated from all that is what we know, all the other consciousness of the world, all the other physical, parts of the world. You don't even know where you are.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
It is. It's kind of like the fear of the deep ocean too.
It'll be interesting to see how that translates, because that's a real fear. Horror movies have followed the same, 2 or 3 scripts over and over again, and some masked man or whatever the case is, and that stuff's startling. It's not like a real daily fear that most people live with.
No,
like
slasher films,
cabin in the woods type set.
Right.
But fear of being alone, a lot of people have that. That's a real fear. So for the entertainment purposes, I hope it translates well to film.
Yeah, I really want to watch it. The guy, I forget his name. It's a pseudonym anyway. It's a guy that when he was like 19, he made a YouTube channel, and he did it's called urban exploration, and he would explore these places, and he would make fake videos of him acting as if he was trapped there, and that's what it was. And he did that for several years, and it got so big that a studio offered him to direct the movie.
That's awesome.
Based on that. It was a really cool story. I'll have to dig into it. I can maybe put a link to the previews in the end of the podcast here, but
I think I got the right cable here. I'm gonna play this clip that we were talking about.
Oh, is this the Kandahar Giant clip?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, maybe this will get us a little bit back on track.
Yeah, maybe I can. All right, let me try it again.
No worries.
Tell me.
The skin was pale,
Here.
white. He said it had 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot. And the feet were wrapped in a very primitive canvas type wrapping. And he said he and the guys that were standing around the body were actually taking their boots and putting it up to the foot. And he said it was, twice as big as twice, 3 times bigger than everybody's boot. I mean, the feet were enormous. They're all putting their feet up to the foot. And he said this thing was solid as a rock. They were all kind of tapping it on the top. And he said it was like a brick. I mean, this thing was just like solid muscle. He said it could have been some rigor mortis or whatever, but I mean, it was apparent from what you could see of this dude that he was a brick house. So
How tall?
So the pallet was 9 feet
9?
long, and he's in the fetal position. So they estimated his size at 10 to 12 feet tall.
Wow.
They weighed the giant. They weighed this being because they had to weigh it. The loadmaster had to weigh it before they put it on the C-130. The whole thing weighed, I think they told me, and I could be wrong, but I think it was 1,500 pounds. And then when you subtract all the dunnage and the pallet and whatever else, I know that the final weight was 1,100 pounds. The final weight was 11, and then he told me for sure. He said that the weight was, this thing weighed 1,100 pounds. And so you can imagine, let's say it was 12 feet tall, 1,100 pounds. So, I mean, this thing weighs more than like a Kodiak bear. Yeah. I mean, it's a massive, massive guy. And then, he was asking about the body, like, where'd you guys get this thing? And they told him that they had heard. They didn't know, they didn't have first-hand knowledge. They heard that a group of guys got lost somewhere out in Afghanistan. That this group was out there. These military guys were out there doing something, recon or something like that, and they weren't reporting back in. So they sent out another group to look for them. Another team went out to look for that first team. And when that second team found them, they found them either at the mouth of a cave or in a cave. I can't remember where, but it was in the vicinity of a cave. And they were all dead. And this gigantic humanoid was eating on one of them.
But I want to talk to you about...
Yeah. So, yeah, that's... I cannot remember this guy's name. I'll try to find it just so... He was recently... Well, you know this guy. I cannot think of his name to save my life right now.
Yeah, I definitely know his name, but he did the podcast circuit not that long ago.
He's going through it right now. So this is actually from a couple days ago.
Yeah, was that on Jesse Michaels, maybe? It sounded like it might have been Jesse. I can't remember.
This is posted on American Alchemy.
Yeah, Jesse Michaels.
Okay.
Runs American Alchemy, yeah. I'll have to link their show because he's one of my favorite podcasters. He's awesome.
But yeah, I mean, it's everything that we were just talking about. It's just... as he was talking, I kind of forgot, but I knew the final number was 1,100 pounds. And when you think of that, so if I'm like 6'3" or 6'4" or 230 pounds, that's fuck, that's nothing. Yeah. That's crazy.
So say double your height and call it 450 pounds is what the average build of a, tall, large man would be. And then like triple that weight almost. That's so much muscle mass. Like, yeah. It's crazy.
Do you remember this thing was going around, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago or maybe not that long, but what was it? A gorilla versus a grizzly bear.
The silverback versus grizzly debate.
And, you throw something that's this big in there, he'd have them both in a headlock, chewing on their legs. It's crazy.
2 rows of teeth, yeah.
Yeah.
It's disgusting. It reminds me a lot, and it's a similar thing, but talk about Bigfoot. There's a lot of corollaries between Bigfoot and these giants, and there's even some people that think that Bigfoot basically is a humanoid giant that is related to these people, is somehow related to the Nephilim, what have you. But that's very common with Bigfoot descriptions as well. 9-10 feet tall, probably weighs 800 pounds. Can rip trees out by the roots, small to medium-sized trees. It's insane. And
I've seen some really good, the video evidence stuff. Always, there's never any good stuff, but I've seen some, but with where AI is now, I don't know that I'll ever fully believe something again.
Yeah.
You know, evidence like that. I'd have to see it with my own eyes, I think.
And is that what they want?
Right.
I've often wondered that. AI maybe gets to a point where you can't even use video evidence in court anymore. People
Right.
have, talked about that over the last couple of years, which basically means you can get away with anything.
I know. That's a scary thought.
It's going to cripple our justice system. Because obviously we had a working justice system before video, but think about how many cases get closed these days based on video evidence.
Right.
And throw that all out the window, because there's going to be no way to prove that something's not AI other than an AI program that recognizes AI.
Right.
So who's going to trust that? Is that court worthy?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. So just to, switch off into the Bible Nephilim theory. So you brought up Nephilim. So I did a search, and a lot of times when I want to search, repetition of a Bible, I will look at the Ethiopian Bible because it has, 81 books. So I don't know if this is all of them, but I'm just going to give you a rundown of where giants are either, inferred or called out.
Yeah.
Genesis 6, 1 through 4, the foundational passage describing how the sons of God saw the daughters of men as beautiful, took them as wives, and their offspring were the Nephilim. That translates to giants. In Numbers 13:33, let's see where else. In the first book of Enoch, it's in a couple of places there. It's all over in Enoch 6:8, 9:10, 15:16. It's in the book of Jubilees, all over in Jubilees, but it talks about Noah recounts the pre-flood events, naming 3 classes of giant-like beings: giants, Nephil, and Eliaud. They were unlike one another and all engaged in mutual destruction and wickedness. So there was, maybe multiple different species of giants.
So is one of those then Bigfoot? One is these giants.
It actually plays well, because that plays well into what you were saying.
Yeah.
Could
be a
leftover.
Right. Leftover, similar kind of creature, but not the exact same. Different categories of the same basic thing.
Yeah. That's interesting.
The Bible connection to me with the Kandahar Giant, and there's not just the Kandahar Giant, but talk about giants in America, the mound builders. There's supposedly
that's like Wisconsin area too, right?
Yeah, like Mississippians, right? So the whole Mississippi River Valley, the Ohio River Valley, where all the mound builders were. Supposedly there's been hundreds, if not thousands, of giant bones found in this area, and one of the things is the Native Americans in the area have told a lot of those tribes have told the government, you can't dig anymore. You're not taking anymore.
Yeah.
And there's suspicion that maybe they were paid off to do that just so that new evidence wouldn't come up, or that because the government had been taking them and classifying them and hiding them in the Smithsonian archives or whatever, the Native Americans didn't want them to have them.
That's how I would think, is because I looked up and I had tons of evidence of bones, like you're talking about the mound builders, all this stuff, Patagonia giants, the North American mound builders, Lovelock Cave, Nevada. These are all places where people have found, petrified giants.
Yeah.
And each one has it was a hoax, or it was proven wrong 80 years later, and all this stuff. Which, of course, that's very convenient. But I would think it would be the latter of what you're saying, that the Native Americans are like, you're taking this evidence and you're mocking basically
their
history.
tribal stories.
Yeah.
Their history.
Yeah.
And that's not fair for the government to do, right? Make them look like ridiculous.
Right.
And there is so much you call it folklore, but so much, verbal history, oral history, from not just the natives in North America, the natives in South America, the native inhabitants, the Inuit have stories of giants, over the natives in the China, Southeastern Asia region, they have stories of giants. It's all over the world.
Right.
Literally all over the world. And it's just like pyramids, man.
Yeah.
Why did people all over the world who didn't have contact with each other at all, supposedly, all building these giant triangular buildings
Right.
for really no obvious purpose? Like, they're clearly not tombs like they were originally thought to be.
Yeah.
So why is that the common thread? Why do all of these societies have myths of giants?
What do you think? This is off topic, but who cares? You can tell me what you think, but I recently had heard a different theory on pyramids, because I think I don't remember, but there are people who have seen, images from Mars, and there's like pyramidal shapes, and in North and South Pole, whatever. There's pyramid shapes everywhere. But there's a new theory that they were healing centers.
I can see that.
Kind of like church bells.
So like channeling energy.
Yeah.
Kind of. And
yeah,
using that
and
as
like
healing.
they all have like one solo path to one room, and like king's chamber or whatever. But
right.
Yeah, the theory was that they were healing centers. Like people believe that's what churches were intended for as well, with the bells.
That actually makes a lot of sense. People talk about specifically with churches and church bells, frequency being a strong healing force, and just different forms of energy in general, like red light therapy.
Right.
Is just a different wavelength of the visible light spectrum. Same thing with sound, and I believe the Great Pyramid is the same way, where some of the rooms in the Great Pyramid are specifically tuned to resonate at a very
certain
specific frequency. Yeah. And it's theorized. They don't know for sure, obviously, that is for healing.
Yeah.
As well.
It makes sense. That's a rabbit hole you can go down for a long time. Church bells, or bells in general.
Right.
Have you seen? There's a photo on the internet somewhere. I mean, so the general thing is that the New World Order, or the evil people in charge, there's no bells. You drive by our small town church, and there's speakers up in the bell tower now, right?
We have one church that still has a real bell, and it's the Catholic Church in town still has a bell.
So, but very few of them.
Right.
And I seen a picture. Frick, I wish I could remember where it's from, because my memory doesn't work that way though. But anyways, it was like a field that somebody was digging up, and it was full. They had buried all these giant bells.
Really?
And it's like, well, that looks suspicious as all get out,
Right.
Why?
Was this a modern thing?
Yeah, I think the photo was maybe from like the 90s.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, we can look it up, and maybe that'll be a part of another episode.
The theory then would be that the government or some nefarious actor is hiding them.
Yeah, I think probably big pharma would be playing a part. So if you have a free way to heal, there's a lot of people whose stock prices go down, right? And that's the same thing with pyramids. If somebody can make a money off of, what's going to happen to an industry if there are ways that we can heal our bodies that don't cost us anything, and then maybe we live longer, like the old days or whatever, and old days biblical, not the 1800s when I was like 30 years old. But yeah, I can see big tobacco, big medicine, all saying we don't want people healing,
right?
But
an interesting point that's on that same topic a little bit. Almost all of the difference in life expectancy, so from now, say it's 76, 78, somewhere in there, and in the late 1800s it was probably 50s. Almost all of it is attributed to lower child mortality rates. Yeah. Almost all of it. That's pretty much the whole average, Buster. If you look at the statistics of people who lived past age 18,
all the same.
Almost exactly the same. So people always act as if, in the 1800s everybody died at 30. That's not accurate.
That's how it's portrayed.
That's exactly. I'm sure for that reason, right? To make it seem like, we've made all this progress. We've made a ton of progress in childbirth.
Yeah, keep taking these pills. Keep taking these pills.
It's so bad, but I think you're right. I think there's a reason why they want it to look as if they've done all this great work for keeping, longevity and keeping people alive. And no doubt, modern medicine's done some really cool stuff.
Sure.
but a lot of it is solutions to problems that they've created.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cancer, right? Rates of cancer were significantly lower 150 years ago.
I think there is a test out there that is so irrefutable, and it's the Amish community.
Right.
If you look at the Amish community, that they don't take anything, they have. I know there's branches who are very, become very modern, but these are people who do home births. They work hard every day. They pray harder probably. And don't get me wrong. There's plenty of. It's not like they're perfect. There's plenty of sins going on in that world too. But
everybody's fallible.
Yeah, but if you look at their world compared to ours, I think it's a good metric to look at for our, all the medicine that we take that they don't have to.
Yeah, medicine. It's interesting.
That's another one. There's plenty of conspiracies out there to talk about, but yeah, that's one that definitely I have a lot of passion over.
I really enjoy the energy as healing topic.
Mm-hmm.
It fascinates me, and because there's so many different avenues to go down. We talked about bells a little bit, pyramids, resonance, different frequencies. You talk about Native American music. They used tribal dances and songs for healing. Drums is a really big one. So a certain drum beat can put you in a kind of trance or meditative state. There's a billion different ways that sound is proven to affect the human brain and can cause very positive things to happen in regards to healing, because it's well recognized by modern science, been double-blind tested, that people that are in a positive mindset or people that are feeling good about their prospects heal much faster and much more completely than people who do not. And if music is one relatively direct and easy avenue to put your brain in that state, it's irrefutable that music can help you heal.
Well,
absolutely.
There's I believe like that farmer in Iowa who he played like Mozart and Beethoven to his plants, and they grew like twice as big.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure it has everything to do with vibration and frequency. And
right.
Yeah, I mean, look at you go down your playlist, your iTunes playlist or whatever Spotify you use, and you have songs that get you like jacked up and ready to get into a fist fight.
Yeah,
or
workout
whatever
playlist, man, or whatever, your walking playlist.
And then you go to the next song, and you might feel like you're about ready to fall in love. I mean, music is it definitely affects the human body.
There's a reason it's been around for the entire time that humanity's existed.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, one of the first things that people did when they, gained consciousness was sing songs, gather together in groups, sing tribal songs, sing community songs. And there's been a million different forms of music over the years. And it almost has to be a form of healing or group healing, in my opinion, is why and that's why we're so naturally drawn to it. There's no logical reason why humans would gravitate towards this certain set of vibrational chords done in a certain way. It has to be somewhere buried in our psyche that this is good for you.
Right. Yeah, like a blessing,
Yeah, well, that's singing hymns, right? The hymns. Yeah. It makes people feel good. Even when I'm not really a regular churchgoer, neither are you, but when we were younger and we would go for Christmas or Easter or what have you, and you'd sing the hymnals, it makes you feel good.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I used to think that was, just because like everything, I was a skeptic of, the churches I went to or whatever. And when I would leave church in the past, and this has nothing bad to do with church, it's just currently it's not for me, but you'd leave feeling really good about yourself.
Always.
And so I would think, well, maybe that's like the collective, everybody's in a positive mood. It's going to rub off on you or whatever, but maybe it's bigger than that, like maybe it is. You go to, I was raised Catholic, and you would go to that, and they had the bells and the choir, and maybe it's healing you like spiritually, you know? Yeah.
It might be all of it combined. You have a group of people all gathering, connecting into the same wavelengths, same consciousness, whatever way you want to describe it. They're all there seeking positivity. They're all generally in a good mood. They want healing. They want community. Then you get everybody singing together, doing the music. church is all energy. Really. Yeah. It's a positive energy from your soul. You have the energy from the music, the energy of the building. We talk about resonance. Churches are usually designed, especially classical churches, are designed to resonate at certain frequencies.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's a huge part of it.
Yeah.
The whole topic is fascinating, and we're way off at Giants, but you know, it is what it is. Is there anything else that you want to talk about with the Giants today, or do you think
I think we're good. I mean, it's a super interesting topic, obviously.
Yeah, you got to cut it off somewhere.
Right.
Go for hours, but we haven't actually decided what we're going to be doing next week. We are going to likely be having our first guest, though. So we're still dialing up the details on how we're going to do it, because the way we currently have the podcast set up is for 2 people. So we're going to need to figure out another mic and the logistics of it. But we're really hoping to have one of our family friends on here.
Yeah.
Remember, so it'll be really cool if we can make that happen. But we haven't picked a topic yet. We're going to both reach out and talk to him and try to figure something out. But it'll be another cool topic.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We'll have to figure out a timeline, because definitely with 3 opinions, it's going to go longer. So expect probably a longer episode.
I would think we'll do at least an hour and a half or 2 hours, probably. Right. So, I mean, I was talking to him the other day about what you and I had talked about as far as you would think that an hour would feel super long sitting in chairs with your mics on, you know, sitting upright, whatever. It feels like 10 minutes.
I know.
It's so weird. I have never podcasted before this. Obviously, never even like really made videos.
Yeah.
Wasn't my thing. And then I was under the assumption that we would start to do this and it would be painful to get to an hour.
Right.
It is anything but.
No.
I could do 3 probably.
Well, the reality is, like, before the last couple episodes, we're shaving stuff off, man, because you can't talk about it all. I mean, especially, you know, we want to, this isn't just going to, you know, we don't want to just come up here and regurgitate crap, right?
Right. There's a lot of podcasts that do that.
Yeah. We want to give our opinions and really just talk through it. And, it takes a long time to get through one topic.
It does. Well, there's so many, the way that we try to do our podcast, and this is not for better or worse for anybody else. A lot of people have their rhythms that work really good for them, but for us, we want it to feel like a conversation where we kind of bring up a general topic and we riff on it and just have a normal man-to-man human conversation, and you guys feel like you're a part of it. That's the goal here. And in doing that, you naturally get off on tangents. You naturally get distracted. We both have ADD, so you can't stay on topic anyway. But no, it's been really fun, and I'm really glad we started. And I hope you guys that do watch have enjoyed it so far too. So definitely appreciate the support as well.
All right. That's it for this week then, guys. Thanks
guys. Have a good one.